What's up, everybody? It is me and my friend M, a longtime hunting buddy. We're going to be discussing all the Monster Hunter weapons throughout the evolution of the game in a tier list format. We're mainly focusing on Monster Hunter Rise, but we're including the evolution as a part of it. And we're going to talk about power, like that weapon's power, but that's not really a major factor. A bigger factor would be like the experience you have playing that weapon, the enjoyability of it, and whether or not the people you're playing with, your party, enjoy you playing that weapon or not, or you enjoy your party playing that weapon, which we'll get into later. And of course, personal opinion. If you don't agree with us, you're just wrong. So, but we'll go ahead and get started. M, why don't you tell us what we start with?
I guess we'll take it with a down-home favorite for a lot of people and just start with the great sword, I suppose.
All right, great sword. I'm putting it in D tier just for the sake of things, but we're not putting it in D tier. Oh, that's a tough one because this is like, I'm pretty sure this is most people's favorite weapon.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said forget. Let's just start with it because a lot of people. Did great. I mean, Final Fantasy, a lot of media, Buster Swords, people like the big slashy stick,
Yeah.
like to swing big stick around.
And this is one of the first weapons I picked up. The second weapon I ever used, technically, because I started with Sword and Shield, but shortly after got into Great Sword.
Yeah.
And it really only got better
honestly,
with the years.
It really did, because when I first started playing Monster Hunter, because I've played since Gen 1, got more into it, more in Gens 2 and 3, but the first generation, a lot of that shit was clunky. Especially, and I mean, Great Sword kind of plays clunky anyway, so it wasn't about, that was never an issue, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I would definitely put it in either the S or the A tier for me.
Well, no, yeah, it's definitely S or A tier. Well, I mean, I'm obviously gonna have bias. I mean, I used to play it. I think
Same.
It's definitely between S or A. It's a good, powerful weapon. It's I don't know.
It's when we talk about enjoyability, it's very enjoyable for the party and for the player. So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's always been good. I think that would qualify S tier. All right. We'll just go back and forth. I'll pick a weapon. You pick a weapon. So.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds good.
I'm gonna go with one of my all-time favorites, the heavy bowgun. The heavy bowgun. First time I ever played this was like probably 3 Ultimate, I think. That was when I started getting into gunning.
My gunning started in Gen Ultimate. I never. Well. That's false. I touched bowguns briefly, I believe, in the 3rd gen, but my knowledge was what my friends gave and told me at the time, and I only tried it a handful of times because I felt pressured to do so in the party.
Well, for me, and back then when I got started on gunning in 3 Ultimate, this was like a absolute beast of a weapon, and it was so fun to make mix sets. It was very fun to use pierce, normal shots, especially because back then we still had underwater.
Super good.
So underwater had normal level 3 being really good. Overall, like you could take this weapon on land or in the water, and it would be an absolute beast.
Big time.
I love this.
Like I said, I loved playing it in Gen Ultimate. Like in Gen Ultimate, it was definitely fun.
Valor style.
And it was super busted.
I will say though, you tend to get the occasional HR 999 player who gets on for the first time in a month and decides to join your party, and you think he's going to be great. He rocks a heavy bowgun and he ends up carding like 2 or 3 times. So I will
immediately blasted.
I will take a knock for. I'd say in terms of power, I mean it's almost always like top, but you can have some varying experience on the party. Specifically talking about randoms. Like if you're playing with your friends, I don't think it matters. I don't know.
Before
3U, I mean, I think I like the light bowgun more, at least concept wise, but For me, I think it's A tier.
Yeah, I would definitely say A. I would say A tier as well.
So what are you gonna choose next?
The weapon that I fell in love with in the third gen switch axe. Just because I'm still to this day a filthy switch axe main.
I think this is a pretty easy one for us.
I mean, switch axe is always going to be S tier to me. It's big damage, enjoyable as all hell, and I'm going to always have a bias. There's always going to be a bias for me, especially in Rise, because I will say, when it first came out, I loved it, but it was definitely far more complex and harder to pick up back in the day.
I started switch axe on the 3U as well, or 3 try. And it instantly became my favorite weapon. It wasn't even close. Yeah. And it was that way for a very long time. Yeah, I'd say in short, we both love the weapon. There is some bias there, but even without the bias, you guys have to totally agree with us here that the evolution of the weapon, it's basically always been good, and it's only better in Rise. It's enjoyable for everyone. It doesn't get in the way, and it's powerful. It's always been powerful. If you need to chop a tail off or break a horn, it can do both. This is
that was always a big point. Big point of the selling point when it first came out was the fact that you can sever tails and still break parts.
I'm gonna go with I almost said longsword, but sword and shield. I
thought you would have went light bowgun.
Not yet. Sword and shield is the very first weapon I ever used. I loved it back in the day. I used to be like a poison sword and shield main for some reason. I don't know why, but that was my thing. And then I moved on to switch axe. But Generations and Generations Ultimate, because they introduced sword oil. Yeah. And that was very nice.
Oh yeah, sword oil changed the game. That was much like Sword and Shield was always a nice niche because it's like that starting weapon. Like they literally start you in the game holding a sword and shield. Yeah. It's simple, and a big thing too. It's like you can block, you can attack from blocks, you can slash, you can build up stun, and you can also obviously use items with your weapon drawn.
It is the only weapon that lets you do that.
Yeah,
it's a nice little unique feature, specifically for
so
support.
It's like,
so if you
you could status support super well.
Late game you can support really well because you can run like Mushromancer and wide range and spam
exactly
bombs.
I just don't know how well it functions in a party in Rise. I don't see them in party with them a lot, to be honest.
It is tough. It's definitely not as popular nowadays. But if we're taking this, as GU, it'd be a lot higher. But this is definitely a B or C for me because in terms of power,
I would put
it's not a very powerful weapon.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say probably like around B tier because it's definitely a sustainable, easy to pick up weapon if you're hunting. Yeah.
All right. So what are you gonna pick?
I guess I'll take it. Up from the 3rd gen to the 4th gen when I fell in love with my next love, the Charge Blade.
All right. Well, you're definitely the guy to talk to. You got me more into it, so.
It was definitely like swax on like it was like it was like the same concept and functionality of the switch axe. Charge Blade though, when it first came out, it was an automatic. Well, it was broken first of all. Right. Like literally back in 4U, you could run the most busted Charge Blade builds. You'd be invincible, and like you could literally think about all those deviant hunts, like the horn breaks, the knockdowns. Like it's a busted weapon, and over the generations and its evolution, it's always just been busted. It's not always the most user-friendly weapon. People see them as overly complicated, when in simplicity, yes, it is a complex weapon, but it's simple. It's like hack and slash, switch to the next mode, beat 'em up, big explosion, sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up.
For the sake of moving on, let's get
for the sake of moving on,
letters.
Past the complexity, yeah. It's gonna be a bias for me, but yeah.
I would be a B just because I don't play it as much. But I can't argue, like, it's obviously very powerful, and everything, but
I would say,
just an average for us would be an A. So I'm gonna go sword and shield.
I think you mean dual blades.
Oh yeah, sorry. For me, man, like, I always loved dual blades, but like as time went on, I liked it less and less. And I think it is a bit elitist, I'll admit, but I just see it as a bit of a noob weapon. And I apologize to people who may main dual blades, you know, the one person out there, but but
I definitely think that dual blades are that weapon that's nice to have in a party for that constant DPS,
only
pressure on.
In my opinion, only if they're running status or blast. That's
yeah. Most definitely. If it's not like some kind of elemental or they're not some kind of status run, especially now that you can do all the like aerial vaulting and like attack on Titan ass fucking Beyblade across a monster's body and shit. How would you not run a build like that anyway? But besides that point, like you said, I feel like it can be considered that noobish weapon. Apologies to people who main it and love it.
Too many people with non-matching armor sets in the old games come in with dual blades and destroy my party,
and they get blasted
3 times. You know?
Yeah, and they get blasted. No, exactly. I was gonna say,
man.
I was gonna say
it, dude.
No, yeah. There's gonna be a bias there. I mean, I definitely say damage-wise, it's like A to S tier potential. But when it comes to that
it takes skill, like you can't.
That's what I was gonna say. There's
just run in and get that A tier.
I was literally gonna say. I was gonna say that there's definitely for the average player, there's a skill curve for them dual blades. So, like I said, the potential's there, but I would definitely say I would put it like with sword and shield. It's in that B tier. It has the potential to go higher.
And you know, depending on the game, these two flip for me. But if we're talking about current gen, I'd say Sword and Shield is better than, or sorry, Dual Blades is better than Sword and Shield. But not by much.
Definitely. I don't know. Like I said, based on builds and other stuff. Yeah. We can move on from that. Yeah. We talked about that. I guess since we did a branch off, we'll go on the next branch off and go for longsword.
Well, my experience with the longsword is I didn't use it much, pretty much ever. I always liked it. I always thought it was cool. It was fun to use when I used it, but it was never my main weapon. And I know some people main longsword. A lot of people hate on longsword because, and it's all almost the same reason. It's because the party experience, like. People get tripped.
It's
and
definitely
stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's been a biased favoritism towards the weapon in recent years. And I mean, I loved the weapon when it initially debuted, like the dual blades, because I loved the greatsword initially, and the longsword was essentially like a faster greatsword, minus blocking, replacing it with Sakura slashes. I loved it. I loved the concept of being able to like fade step dodge and like parry combo into Sakura slashes. It is literally how the weapon plays now, and I can't stand it. Like the optimal way of how I would have wanted the weapon to play, and I'm like, I'm not really like it. I feel like it was everything we could have wanted if you liked longsword.
I think it's a fun weapon, but I've never been particularly drawn to it. And I know that like the masses love it, but like for me personally, like just because it's so overrated, I almost hate it more. There is an S, A, B, C, and D on this tier, and it is unfortunate, but some of these weapons have to go in the D and C tier, or else it just isn't a fair assessment of the weapons.
Yeah,
and D tier doesn't mean necessarily like, oh, this guy, don't ever use it.
Okay,
it's just like. In comparison to the other weapons, in comparison to our opinions and power, you know, like
I'll drop it now. Power, yeah, definitely S tier. Capability, S tier. Enjoyability, A or B. But do I want one in my party or final rating? Definitely gonna give it a D. Yeah, I say maybe give it just leave it in the C for now, because like I don't know, like.
So my experience of Insect Glaive, now I'll be honest, I have not played it in Rise, but I played it in Generations Ultimate 4U and up. I think it's fun.
I have two experiences.
Cool, and it used to be very overpowered because it was the only mounting weapon, but now everything can mount.
As a mounting weapon, I used to. From my experience, even when it was. Okay, yeah. You go on. I'm sorry.
So no, you're good, bro. But yeah, it's very fun in that aspect. But like as the time went on, it became less valuable to me in my eyes, and the annoyance of upgrading the insect perfectly, and the annoyance of always collecting the correct things.
Definitely mainstreamed that more. Like they've made that less of a chore.
It used to be quite a chore, and that's my experience with Insect Glaive.
Yeah, and I will say this, and when it first came out, that was a chore. God forbid you fuck up your bug upgrade and have to start all over, craft a whole new goddamn weapon, and start upgrading a fucking bug all over.
Well, if you think it's been streamlined more recently, I would give it a bit more credit. I do love the weapon, and I'm sorry if you're an Insect Glaive main or whatever, but for me, like just a personal experience and everything, I'm leaning more towards the B tier. So what does that put us as?
I would bump it down too and say I'd give it a solid B and say that it has the S and A tier potential.
Yeah, and we'll just go ahead and apologize to Vel and Lucy if they're watching this. I'm sorry your favorite weapons are in B tier, but please pick the next weapon.
Did you? Oh yeah. Okay. So I'll go with an old school classic that's been around and talk about the hammer on the next one.
I knew you'd pick the hammer. All right, go ahead. Yeah, go off.
I was debating, but yeah, we'll go hammer. We'll talk about impact. Personally, I only ever dabbled in hammer, but I always appreciated a hammer. Like back in the day playing like greatsword and longsword, it would be like, because one of my old school homies back in high school, he like wore hammers. So it was like I had like a great sword and a long sword, and he had a big ass hammer. It was like a match made in heaven. He could break monster parts and I could sever tails, and it was like these magic moments.
Absolutely. And for my portion with this, I have a lot of experience with hammer from old Monster Hunter games and from friends playing hammer. I have a friend named, I'd say I used to have a friend. We used to be very good friends. Me, Lisa, and Radar were kind of a trio back in the day. Lisa would always play hammer, and when she wasn't playing me or Radar would play hammer. But Radar was always a great sword guy. But
yeah,
sometimes I'd have to play the hammer and stuff too, even though I preferred the gun or something like that. But the thing is, like back in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, we're talking about a Latreon, okay? A Latreon is one of the hardest monsters to break the horns off of.
Boy.
You cannot break the horns off this guy unless you have a hammer. I'm telling you, right now, if you do not have a hammer in your party in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, you are not going to break those horns unless you have a coordinated team, okay? You need a hammer to break those horns.
You don't have to tell me... Zach, come on. I'm the man who flashed a Latreon, the first to do so in like 1,000 years. Tell me about breaking a Latreon in OG Monster Hunter and modern shit. But trust me, I flashed a Latreon. I know. I told that bitch to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up.
You listen here, guys. I flash freaking Kezus. I capture Elder Dragons. I know what I'm talking about.
True. This is true. This is a completely non-bias on everything said here. We capture Elder Dragons. We flash Kezus. I broke that Latreon horn. Back to point.
Back on track. It's decent. It's always decent. It's never like exceeding. It's never bad. It's just a solid weapon all the time. It's never been an exceeding weapon in my opinion. but it's nice to have in a party.
Like, you could definitely have fun even playing a hammer by yourself too.
It's better with other people. Absolutely. Yeah. And so for me personally, I'd set this in the B tier. I think it's just a solid average weapon. It's really good to have in a party.
Yeah, and you could also have fun playing. I would definitely say
you agree? B
it
tier?
has. I would definitely say drop it in the B tier.
Let's go ahead and throw one of the last OGs in here. The Lance. Okay, now
I'm glad you picked Lance.
I'm
honestly glad.
Mixed experience with Lance. Here's the thing.
I have.
Okay,
I have one friend that's a Lance main.
You can talk.
All I'm gonna say is I have one friend that's a Lance main. That's all I'm gonna say. I have one friend who mains a Lance. End of statement.
All right. Well,
I know one Lance main.
For me, Lance has always been like, you know what? This is a pretty cool weapon. This is nice. It's cool, especially in 3U, because it was good in underwater and on land. It's a solid weapon, and it is kind of cool to like block everything and be kind of a badass in that way and just counterattack, especially nowadays with all the, I think it was called corkscrew jab was like the counterattack move for Generations Ultimate. It is pretty fun. But like, this is a specific person. I don't see a lot of Lance mains out there. I think it's cool. I think it's nice. I'll be honest, back in the day when I was on a Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, I used the Lance on one specific quest, and it was the Super Bracky quest. It was this Brachydios who was like super charged up on steroids, looking like Dwayne Johnson. He was absolutely jacked. He would fucking one-shot anyone. But the only person who wanted to get one-shotted was me. You know why? Because I was using a Lance. And that gives a little bit of credit to me for the Lance. I think it's a good weapon for defense capabilities. It's very mixed. It's very offensive defense. It's obvious. I mean, you can look at the picture. It even has the lance and the shield are the same size practically. You know, it's clearly a weapon that's focused on the balance of attack and defense. You go ahead.
Well, one thing I can say about Lance is it's definitely interesting because, like you said, it's the OG weapon that had a heavy guard stance. Because Sword and Shield could block, Great Sword could block, but Lance's block, it had the heavy guard stance and the heavy block.
Definitely. You need to have guard. If you're using a Lance and you don't have guard up or guard boost back in the old days, you're not playing. You're not.
No, exactly. You're really not.
For the sake of moving on, I'm actually going to lean towards C because the other weapon in C is the perfect example of why this weapon's in C. All right, what's your choice?
Yeah, well, let's say Gunlance. Yeah, Gunlance.
Right, let's go.
See, Gunlance is an interesting topic. My main experience is I have some friends that have played Gunlance just because of one factor, and especially because in Rise you can like fucking jet rocket around and shit, you know. But besides that point, I think that they definitely showed Gunlance a lot of love.
Well, one of my friends, his name is Professional or Fabu Nick, whichever one you want to go with. He loved Gunlance. It was his favorite weapon. I liked it a lot. We met in 3U. That was when Gunlance started to become prevalent because of the Brachydios Gunlance. A lot of Brachydios weapons really brought together some weapons that weren't available before, but
it was the same with like dual blades, and the Brachy switch axe was also very powerful.
And for me personally, I know this is like a common statement, but I think it's basically the Lance but better. And I know that's not fair to the Lance, but because the Lance has different combos. Not. But
well, let's face it.
For me personally, the Gunlance is just cooler. It's cooler. It's better. I fucking love the Gunlance compared to the Lance.
Okay. If we're gonna throw that higher. Completely non-biased opinion on that fact as a filthy swax main and someone who likes to go boom, bust the explosion.
Right.
I would say it rests somewhere between B and A. Yeah, Gunlance.
I would give it a solid B. You're leaning towards A or B?
I would say I would lean towards A, but I would put it in B. I would say it has
we could put it at the top
and
of B. All right. So the remaining 3 weapons are all weapons I love because of their support weapons. One of them isn't quite much of a support weapon anymore, but
it can be.
Right. I don't know. I love all these weapons. There's gonna be a lot of bias from here on out.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about one.
Let's go.
Oh, that's fun.
Weapon I decided to use for my Monster Hunter playthrough for YouTube. I don't exactly have a goal for it, but if you're watching this video, you definitely watched me play Monster Hunter Rise with the bow. Because I wanted to experience the bow. Because I haven't experienced the bow since Monster Hunter, like the PSP ones, like Monster Hunter Freedom, Freedom 2.
Freedom and Unite and all that.
Those were when I played bow. I loved bow, but it was bad.
Well,
and so
same.
When I got to Rise, it just got better. It's amazing now.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, because I'm glad that bow has seen the love that it's gotten. Because when it first came out, bow was my original take on liking ranged weapons. I would definitely just say now, because we could have a lot of stuff to say about it, I would definitely give bow solid A.
My experience with the bow is exactly what you're saying. I think it only got better as time went on, and bow definitely for me is solid in the A tier because I absolutely love it in the new generation. It is a solid 100%. Weapon choice. It is a solid weapon choice between melee and gunner builds. If you want to try one of the other, go to bow, meet in the middle. So we'll move on. Let's go ahead and get the last range weapon out of the way, light bowgun. Light bowgun, guys, I love light bowgun. I love gunning. You guys know this. I'm a support person. I love to support. Obviously, the hunting horn is on the track. But light bowgun is also the same as the hunting horn. You can support just as much. You can buff people. You can stun the fuck out of the monster. It is an absolute must. Okay, and you can do damage if you want to. If you have the right set, you can do damage.
I'm pretty sure when I met you while hunting, you had a light bowgun on.
That is probably
but I don't
true.
like I think when you joined the party you had the status one on, but I think you switched to your Nargacuga bowgun because we were talking about raw damage, because I'm a filthy switch axe and charge blade main, so I'm like, raw damage, big explosion. So it's like you threw on your Narga bowgun. Yeah, you threw on your Narga light bowgun, and we were talking about raw damage builds. And I was like, I can appreciate the raw damage light bowgun. And I think that's how we initially met and became friends after that and started hunting together.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a choice. It's not an early game weapon unless you're running some secondary character, but it's always a good weapon to choose. I've always loved it. I love this weapon. Obviously, there's some bias. Evolution-wise, obviously, it wasn't as good back in the day. From as soon as online play started to now, it is always a choice. It is always a weapon you want on your team. So for me personally, it's at least an A tier. And since we're both agreeing on A, I'm gonna put it at the top of A. And there's a reason for this. It's because obviously heavy bowgun is better, but when it comes to speed running and when it comes to efficient runs and farming, you want a light bowgunner.
Oh yeah.
That's the most meta weapon when it comes to speed running or anything efficient. You have to have a light bowgunner.
Yeah, most definitely.
And obviously there's a skill ceiling to that, but if you're mad about the skill ceiling, just hire me and I will obviously take care of that for you because I'm a great light bowgunner. But last weapon, M.
All right, yeah, no, I was excited. This is when I was debating on picking Gunlance, because I really wanted to talk about hunting horn as a support weapon. Even back in the day, when people used to not really care about the buff benefits of a hunting horn in the party over DPS, because that's the rough history of hunting horns. When they first hit the scene, it was much harder to play them, and people just would rather have more DPS over that support horn. And nowadays, oh my god, have they shown love to the hunting horn. And as a support weapon and being able to just do the melody and then boot something right in the snoot and say, sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up, bitch.
I mean, yeah. I I think hunting horn is fantastic. I'm a support weapon player. I love support weapons. Hunting horn is obviously the peak of support. Unfortunately for me, I haven't got into hunting horn as much as light bowgun. I prefer the light bowgun, like in terms of support. But the hunting horn is a nice like melee adaptation. Like if I was more of a melee inclined player, I would choose hunting horn.
Yeah.
Light bowgun or hunting horn, like these are the types of weapons I would use, right? And I love these weapons. They're always good. You don't want to play them solo, but in a party, they are excellent. They are beyond excellent. They are the best support weapon in the game.
You can definitely play by yourself, but you're gonna have a better time playing with people. And like I said, like especially like big hitters. Like I'm saying, like the to the great sword mains out there, and like the other people that are like filthy swax mains like myself. I love to jazzers. I love a hunting horn main. Hit me with them melodies and just let me bust the explosion.
Support and like the enjoyability of having someone play that weapon, I'm gonna lean towards S or A for me.
Well, actually, yeah, like I would definitely say, yeah, it's somewhere between A and S. Then just it's a busted weapon, and they've definitely showed it so much love.
I almost want to put it in S tier, but like in terms of average, it is an A tier. But that brings me to my next point. Just into finalizing this entire tier list, we need to aggregate everything here. Let's go ahead and figure out what exactly should be where based on what we have so far. We need to have at least one D tier weapon. What is the worst weapon in Monster Hunter? What is it?
So we could immediately bump longsword down to D for me, just because how I feel about it right now. In current rise, I see so many they trip people up.
I personally believe Lance. So how are we gonna settle this?
I think the easiest way to settle this is we just need to balance this chart out so it doesn't look like a cock and balls. Okay. You realize that, right? You looking at this thing? I look like a dick to you?
So how do you decide here?
Shit.
We need something in S tier. What's the weapon that brings to S tier?
Something.
A support weapon. It's either for me, it's light bowgun or hunting horn.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, they're the choice between support weapons. I say, shit. Yeah, I say we leave the light bowguns in A. We bump hunting horn to S, and I'm still holding strong on bumping down longsword just because my disdain for it.
We're just longsword haters.
Totally unbiased opinion by the not because we hate the weapon or anything. Unbiased opinion. It's the worst weapon in the game.
I don't know.
We could also drop the hammer down to C.
Well, the hammer doesn't belong there simply because of the older Monster Hunters. Like the older Monster Hunters,
true that.
Hammer is the guy, right? Because we don't have all these crazy ass weapons, right?
Yeah,
we only have the hammer.
True, but we also do have to weigh in current Monster Hunter and the fact that the list exists not just off a bias, but for a reason that some of these weapons, like I said, the great sword's S because it can still hold up in what it was great then and it's great now. It's the great sword and it holds up in what it does. But although the hammer was very good in niche, there are things that do what it does better and can do more than it now, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. I guess we do need to do it. Like we gotta make some hard decisions here.
Like we gotta make some tough decisions. And honestly, looking at where we have things right now,
it's better than Lance. It's
definitely better than Lance. I don't know. I feel like if anything deserved a bump up, it might be dual blades. Because I feel like dual blades can. I don't know.
I think dual blades is better than Gunlance, just because it's easier to pick up, it's easier to do good with.
And you can status too.
Yeah, it's a
Gunlance is definitely good.
But Gunlance is a damage ceiling. You need to have skill. Like you need less skill of dual blades, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think dual blades need some kind of bump up in that tier list, if not up a tier itself.
Let's bump it to top of B. I think we're solid, man. I don't think we could improve this. I think this is in terms of me and your opinion and what we're grading this list off. I think this is the best we're gonna get.
Yeah. Talking about like past and present experiences and like the evolution in between and everything else.
It sucks that longsword is the worst weapon, but you know, don't take it too personally. Every single weapon on this list is amazing, right? Like it's fun to play.
Super viable.
It's just a context, right? It's all about context.
Yeah. I think it's better for solo play, and if you're just picking up the game and doing shit by yourself, yeah, go for it. I mean, there's a lot of other, you could have a lot of fun playing solo play too, but you know, compared to all the other weapons, if you're going to be out here, like I get tripped up the most by a longsword, and a lot of people will run flinch free and other shit specifically not to get tripped up by a longsword. I don't like that.
I feel you, man. Well,
and about that life.
I think that's it for us, man. We pretty much got this list down. Em and I are going to retire for now, but we would love to come back with another video. Let us know what you think. Please argue with us. I would love to argue with you in the comments and tell you why you're wrong. But, Em, closing thoughts.
Dazzle the stage. Good luck. Have fun. Thanks for hunting with us. Oh, baby.
Love you guys. Peace out.